At this moment, the world has entered the Ice Age. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 726. These active and dangerous minerals are all contained in the deepest part of the museum and are guarded by dedicated staff. The ornamental ore is taken out and placed on the outermost part of the museum for people to visit and admire. The contained ores are contained in glass jars made of multifunctional glass, and visitors can only visit 1 meter away. That's right. Compared to the other two museums, the 90 National Mineral Museum is more important for people to visit, because only after allowing them to visit can the gaps and hazards between these different minerals be popularized. Now that there are more and more space ore, they must take precautions in a twinkling of an eye. The National Museum has been successfully established, and after testing, it is completely ready for use. So the official start of the first wave of testing. On this day, all netizens discovered that a message appeared quietly on the official website. The National Museum will officially open to forward this news in 3 days. We will select 1,000 lucky viewers from the forwarders as our first batch of visitors. When everyone sees this news, the first reaction is that this person has been hacked. That's a closer look. How can this country's official website be hacked? That is to say, it is true that a large number of internet users have become excited over time. Although it is not the National Zoological Museum or the National Botanical Museum. It is the National Mineral Museum. As long as it is a national level engineering construction with the word national, it will definitely not be bad. This news was reposted by a large number of people for a while, and it was overwhelming in just 1 day. As long as the people in the East know the news of the National Mineral Museum. This news has begun to spread wildly, and even to the West, the world knows that the National Mineral Museum is about to start a batch of tests. Everyone wants to be the first group of visitors to the National Mineral Museum, knowing that maybe they won't be able to visit again after this visit. Soon, 3 days came, and the country selected 1,000 viewers based on randomly forwarded data. Surprisingly, among these 1,000 viewers, how many Westerners are there? Subsequently, these spectators took transportation to the place where the National Museum is located, and the cost of the transportation they took was borne by the Great Eastern Powers. My god, this is too grand. I saw that the National Museum is located in a wasteland, and his whole body is a cylindrical building with a silver technology appearance. And this cylindrical building has a total of 100 floors, and each floor contains hundreds of different types of minerals. Walking into the museum, everyone's eyes were bright, and they saw colorful ores, which immediately disturbed their eyes. The first floor is filled with ornamental minerals, and their patterns are very beautiful. They are generally used as collectibles and collected by major collectors. Then comes the second layer. The third and fourth layers are ornamental fossils. Starting from the 10th layer, all of them are industrial ore. Continue to go up. When we reach the 50th floor, we finally reach the cosmic ore level. That's right. There are many kinds of space minerals that have fallen from the sky these days, and they have used 20 layers of space to display these space minerals just because they knew it. Further up are those active and dangerous ores. Chapter 727. For a while, the detailed content about the National Mineral Museum was spread by those visitors. Everyone wanted to enter the National Mineral Museum to get a glimpse. In a blink of an eye, a month has passed. The National Health Administration entered the ice sheet and found the dead animal carcasses, and found that there was no so-called space radiation on the carcasses. This proves that the people at the National Research Center have nothing wrong with their research. Along with the disappearance of space radiation, the ecology on the Earth has gradually recovered and stabilized. After another full year, the concentration of cosmic dust in space began to drop, and people on Earth finally began to see the sun again. Ying Ziyue couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and had been in awe all this year, for fear that in this state of eternal night, there would be other disasters. It turns out that all of this, he thought, was superfluous. Relaxed Ying Ziyue couldn't help but sip a sip of coffee. This short period of 1 year was a leaps and bounds for human civilization. Because of the emergence of a large amount of space ore, new possibilities have emerged for human science and technology. In this short period of 1 year, human science and technology civilization has exploded. Ying Ziyue thought, should she go to other departments to take a look? Thinking of this, Ying Ziyue stood up, and the secretary on the side asked, Mr. Ying, where are you going? Come with me. Remember that the last time we traveled around the world was many years ago. To what extent human civilization has developed today, we still don't know. The secretary nodded, and then Ying Ziyue photographed her aircraft parking garage, where her UFO aircraft was parked. After seeing the UFO aircraft, Ying Ziyue raised his brows slightly, because he found that this UFO aircraft seemed to be different from the UFO aircraft he had previously piloted. The most obvious feature is that its appearance is as smooth as a mirror, without the slightest scratches. You must know that the UFO you were driving at the time flew across the country, and you will inevitably have some scars on your body. The secretary on the side saw that Ying Ziyue had been staring at the UFO aircraft. He knew his doubts for the first time, and then explained, Mr. Ying, because the previous UFO aircraft was too old, I sent it to the National Project Ministry to transform. You can rest assured that the operating functions of this UFO aircraft are no different from before. Compared with the performance, it is more powerful than the previous generation UFO aircraft. Its shell uses the most advanced gold air alloy as a shell. The color you see now is just a layer of protection, the color of the coating. And his system is connected to all the systems so far, including the weapon system, so that you can be protected by the Eastern powers when you travel around the world. After all, your safety is an important thing for the Eastern powers. There is also its engine, which we have also equipped and used. It is the latest Vulcan energy heart power system. Basically, if you fly at full strength, it will take only 1 hour to orbit the entire Earth. Looking at the UFO aircraft in front of him, Ying Ziyue laughed. He never thought that the first one that embodies the evolution of human science and technology is actually his own UFO aircraft. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 728. Presumably riding on this latest UFO aircraft, our journey experience must be very comfortable. Ying Ziyue boarded the UFO aircraft, and the secretary also boarded the aircraft. Turn on the UFO aircraft. Welcome back to my master. The power engine system of the aircraft is being turned on. The turning on is complete. Starting the aircraft system connection mode. Turning on complete. All UFO performance is being tested. Everything is normal, ready to take off. When the shadow industry boarded the UFO aircraft, the UFO aircraft automatically connected to all the system permissions so far. Then the UFO aircraft took off automatically, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the sky in a blink of an eye. Ying Ziyue only felt a slight shock in her body, and in a blink of an eye they had arrived at the first station, the Antarctic Research Station. I'm going. This latest UFO aircraft is too fast, right? I almost didn't respond, and I actually went to the Antarctic Research Station, the secretary on the side said. Leader Ying, if you want to observe the scenery along the way, we can reduce the speed of the UFO aircraft. Yes, since we are all here, let's go in and take a look. At this time, the Antarctic Research Station is far from the stormy snow like before. I still remember that when they came before, a large number of blizzard chariots were opening their way in the snowy Antarctica point, but now it's different. There are so many roads built between these glaciers. If it weren't for the map, it was Antarctica. He would think he had come to a certain city point. When he arrived at the Antarctic Research Station, he saw the giant soldier standing there, like a door god. Ying Ziyue came to the Antarctic Scientific Research Station, and was warmly received by the staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Station. Later, he also gradually learned that the reason why Antarctica is in the current situation is because of the presence of giant soldiers, which made it a lot easier for them to open the waypoint. Because the road was opened, the materials were shipped out, and the Antarctic Research Station gradually stood up. Antarctica is the only place on the Earth that is icy and snowy all year round. It is also a major eastern country and serves as an important base for testing and researching cold-resistant materials. I saw the members of the Antarctic Scientific Research Station warmly invited Win Midnight to come to their laboratory, and then they introduced this latest cold-resistant coating to Ying Ziyue point. At present, they have applied this kind of coating on the giant soldiers, and it can be seen that the giant soldiers standing outside now have no signs of icing on their bodies, even in the snow and ice. Even if you wear cold resistant clothing and stay motionless for a long time in the ice and snow, you will get some frost on your body. This latest type of cold resistant coating can resist the severe cold as long as it is applied to the body. Good promise. If this cold resistant coating is applied to other machinery, it can make most of the machinery abandon the heavy cold resistant appearance and return to the flexible and changeable mechanization mode. In this way, most of the steps for the research and development department of those machines will be omitted. This is indeed a very useful cold resistant coating. Do you have anything else useful? Maybe I can apply it for you as soon as I see it. Chapter 729. Leader Ying. You also know that our Antarctic Research Station works all year round in the ice and snow of Antarctica, and it can be regarded as a deep understanding of the research on cold-resistant equipment. Later, the staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Station took him to a warehouse and saw one equipment after another in these warehouses. These equipments range from gloves to armored combat vehicles. The staff at the Antarctic Research Station said, "These are all upgraded versions that we have developed based on the previous cold-resistant equipment." Ying Ziyue was a little curious and picked up one of the gloves. After he picked up these gloves, he realized that the term thinner cicada wing really exists. When he picked up these gloves, he could directly see his fingerprints through the gloves. Although this pair of gloves is thin, no matter how you pull it or even stab it with a knife, it won't break. This is an ultra-thin cold-resistant glove developed by us. Don't think it is thin. Although it is thin, its cold-resistant ability is not bad at all. Speaking of the Antarctic Scientific Research Base, staff took out some hot water. I saw him put the thermometer in the hot water. The thermometer showed that the hot water was just 37 degrees Celsius, which was exactly the temperature of the human body. The staff at the Antarctic Research Base then poured the hot water into the gloves and then sealed the gloves. I have to say that this glove is really thin. It fell into the water and poured into the glove. After that, it revealed its figure directly, looking like a water polo. Afterwards, the personnel from the Antarctic Scientific Research Base came outside, knowing that it was freezing outside, and it only took a minute for ordinary water to form hard ice. Today, in the Antarctic of the Ice Age, splashing water into ice is not a dream at all. But something surprising happened. I saw the staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Station threw the ultra-thin cold-resistant glove with hot water directly into the ice and snow. Afterwards, the staff member said to Ying Ziyue, "Leader Ying, don't worry, let's go in for a cup of tea and then come out to check the condition of this glove." Ying Ziyue walked into the Antarctic Scientific Research Base, finally drank a cup of tea, and went outside again. I saw the staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Base pick up the water bowl from the ice and snow, and then came to the Antarctic Scientific Research Base, squeezed the gloves out of the hot water, and then put the thermometer in it. A shocking thing happened. The temperature displayed by the thermometer was still 37 degrees Celsius. That is to say, because of this ultra-thin cold-resistant glove, the heat of the hot water was not absorbed by the outside cold at all. For a while, Ying Ziyue was also a little admired, and then the staff at the Antarctic Research Base motioned to him to put on his gloves. After Ying Ziyue put it on, she saw this ultra-thin glove sticking closely to the surface of his skin, and it seemed that his skin was only slightly whiter than before. We have been researching cold-resistant equipment, but the main direction of our research is how to make these cold-resistant equipment thinner and more suitable for the human body. We must know that the current cold-resistant equipment is generally very heavy, which also means that they will lose more flexibility to gain cold resistance. The researchers at the Antarctic Research Station are more inclined to make cold resistant equipment thinner and more flexible. Chapter 730. Because the cold-resistant equipment concepts developed by the Antarctic scientific research base tend to be thinner, stronger, lighter, and more flexible. Most of the equipment is relatively small and exquisite. Then don't look at them as small and exquisite. In fact, their ability to withstand cold is even stronger than those cumbersome big guys. Ying Ziyue was in the warehouse of the Antarctic scientific research base, choosing from east to west, and then she saw what looked like a tank. The appearance looks very similar to the pre-Ice Age off-road vehicle. Ying Ziyue took a picture of this chariot, and then asked, "Don't tell me, this is the cold-resistant wind and snow chariot you developed?" "Yes, this is the snow and wind battlefield that we developed. Don't underestimate it. We have modified it, based on the data of off-road vehicles before the Ice Age, so that others can adapt to the complex terrain of Antarctica. For this framework, you may not think that we have conducted further research and development on graphene in order to make this framework." Hearing these words, Ying Ziyue raised her brows and became interested in an instant. You must know that graphene has gradually become their most important infrastructure material since the beginning of the Ice Age point, but with the emergence of various cores, graphene has gradually been eliminated. Now, except for some ordinary projects, which require it to be used as a skeleton, it is rarely used. If the new type of graphene developed by the Antarctic Research Station really, then maybe graphene will glow a second spring and re-enter the list of infrastructure materials. You should know that the main structure of graphene is carbon molecules, so we tried to change the structure of carbon molecules, and finally we discovered the existence of superelastic graphene, which can be developed only by changing the distribution and arrangement of carbon molecules. This superelastic graphene, although superelastic graphene cannot be used in engineering construction, it can be used in the construction of some weapons and vehicles. The difference between superelastic graphene and ordinary graphene is that ordinary graphene has ultra high stability and cold resistance. The superelastic graphene is a part that has ductility and reducibility that can be used as a vehicle shock absorber, and it exists in vehicles afterwards. The staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Station got on the snow chariot and then signaled Ying Ziyue to sit on it. "Leader Ying, you have come to the Antarctic Scientific Research Base. Maybe you haven't seen the ice city outside. Zero fine flower city of ice and snow." Ying Ziyue was a little curious. The staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Base said, "Because these glaciers often hide some precious biological samples and resources, we often mine these glaciers, and over time, these glaciers have also become the city of ice and snow." I saw the staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Base drove the latest type of snow chariot and left the scientific research base directly. Sitting in the chariot, Ying Ziyue did feel that the concept of the Antarctic Research Center was ultra thin and super strong. He could see all the scenery outside through a layer of glass. But through a layer of glass, he was sitting in the chariot, feeling warm like spring, without any chill. As their sides continued to rise, they opened the way for the Antarctic Research Center to be built on the glacier. When I took the UFO aircraft, I didn't look at it carefully. It turned out that these glaciers have become beautiful after artificial carving. Death. Chapter 731. The snow chariots kept rising along the road, and then they saw that the picture turned. They actually entered the glacier in the next scene. Ying Ziyue couldn't help but feel whether she had entered the magical world. I saw that the road continued to extend in the glacier, and on both sides of the road, there are actually houses under construction. The staff at the Antarctic Research Base on the side explained. 97. These icebergs contain a large number of minerals and biological samples, so in order to mine the minerals and biological samples, they often build temporary shelters inside the icebergs. Probably it is the same as the igloo. First, a hole will be dug inside the glacier, and then our special construction glass will be put in to consolidate the igloo. This special construction glass also continues the concept of our Antarctic Scientific Research Center. It is ultra thin and super strong, and nothing can be seen on the surface. But if the iceberg accidentally collapses, these special construction glass will protect the people inside. But so far, there has been no mining iceberg collapse in Antarctica, but this kind of thing must always be prevented, right? Ying Ziyue looked at the road in front of him. when he saw the rows of small vendors on the side of the road. He even thought he was back in the inland city. It may be because the cold resistant equipment of the Antarctic Passenger Transport Center was applied here for the first time, so the staff here only wear a layer of casual clothes. Ying Ziyue looked at the road in front of her and immediately asked, "This is in Antarctica. Why don't these roads freeze?" "You must know that this is inside the icebergs of Antarctica. It stands to reason that these roads will start to freeze as long as they touch the icebergs a little bit." The staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Base smiled and then said, "This is the carbon molecular graphite road developed by our Scientific Research Center. The strength of this road is only half that of graphene, but the road used to enter is sufficient. Not only that, it also contains a large number of voids in which the absorption capacity of water is very strong. If there are water stains on the road, it will be quickly absorbed into the inside of the road, and under the blessing of low temperature, it will quickly condense, and the strength of the road will be strengthened to zero. Then as the road continues to be used, these internal soldiers will be constantly squeezed and turned into ice slag, falling down the heating pipe under the road, and then turning into a stream of water to flow out, thus forming a cycle." After hearing these words, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but sighed that the degree of development of the Antarctic Research Center is really superb. You must know that in recent years he has stayed in inland cities and rarely went to the Antarctic Scientific Research Center. He never expected that the Antarctic Scientific Research Center had built such a magical city of ice and snow on his own in recent years. Subsequently, Ying Ziyue said to the staff at the Antarctic Research Base, "After I go back this time, I will help your Antarctic Research Base apply for a dedicated Antarctic Scientific Research Center as your research laboratory." Hearing this sentence, the staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Base suddenly laughed. You must know that he had watched so many scientific research results because of his victory. However, the recognition by Ying Ziyue also shows that the scientific research results of the Antarctic Research Center do have an extremely important role in the development of human civilization. Chapter 732. Generally, Ying Ziyue will not apply for state funding because of some special scientific research achievements. The large Eastern powers have limited funding quotas, and they must apply these limited quotas to scientific research results that can lead the progress of human civilization. Obviously, the Antarctic Research Center has achieved a level ahead of the world in the field of cold-resistant equipment. Such ultra-thin and ultra-strong cold-resistant equipment is sufficient for other cold-resistant equipment to save a lot of tedious appearance and equipment, which in return is ultra-high flexibility and maneuverability. Soon, the changes in the arrangement of the cold-resistant equipment of the Antarctic Research Center were sent to the Yanjing National Center, and the 02 research centers of the Penis State immediately began the replication research of these cold-resistant equipment. At the same time, the Ministry of Engineering has also begun to send personnel to the Antarctic Research Center for the construction of the Antarctic Cold-Resistant Equipment Research Center. Since then, humans will no longer be afraid of the cold brought by the Ice Age. What they want to develop is stronger, thinner, and more flexible cold-resistant equipment. When midnight at the Antarctic Research Center to see the new era of cold-resistant equipment, thinner and stronger. This also makes him more interested in the next journey. What will he encounter next? The scientific research results that surprise him. However, when Ying Ziyue was about to leave, the staff of the Antarctic Research Center stopped her, saying that she was going to customize a cold-resistant equipment for him. Leader Ying, our entire Antarctic Research Center is a fan of you. You have led us from the Ice Age to the present. You are a fan of all of us. When we were making cold-resistant equipment, we were thinking about when we could tailor a cold-resistant equipment for you. Leader Ying, don't hurry to leave. Give us 3 days. We will definitely give you a surprise. How about? Hearing these staff members' retention, Ying Ziyue smiled. Anyway, I'm also on the journey. It's better to just take a look at your city of ice and snow. It's not impossible to stay for 3 days. In fact, Ying Ziyue also hates those heavy cold-resistant equipment very much, so he rarely goes out. Soon, 3 days came, and only the staff of the Antarctic Scientific Research Station took out a watch. Leader Ying, I promise that this is definitely a brand new black technology you haven't seen before. With that said, the staff of the Scientific Research Base carried this seemingly ordinary watch on their wrist point. Then, when he pressed the button of the watch, he saw that his whole body began to be covered by a white liquid. In a blink of an eye, his whole body was covered by this white liquid. After the covering was over, the white liquid became again transparent color. This is an NO-level liquid cold resistant suit developed by us. It is usually stored in this watch. When you use it, just press the switch to release it, and it will cover your whole body. It can be used at any time, and it can be taken back at any time. It is very convenient, but because of its high cost, our Antarctic Research Center has only built 3 sets. Leader Ying, you can accept this gift, just as a publicity for our Antarctic Research Center, right? Originally heard that there were only 3 sets in the world. Ying Ziyue was a little embarrassed to accept it. After hearing the words of the researchers from the Antarctic Research Center, she accepted it with peace of mind. If this is the case, then I will accept it unceremoniously. I will definitely help you publicize this nano-level liquid transparent garment. Chapter 733. After leaving the Antarctic Scientific Research Base, they came to the west for the second stop. The west is now an industrial and agricultural area of major eastern country. Their technology is also more inclined to the development of industry and agriculture. First they came to the Western Industrial City. It is said to be a Western Industrial City, but there are some Eastern scientific researchers stationed here. They are stationed here, and then popularize some industrial knowledge to those Western people, and develop some industrial technology by the way. Before I came to the Western Industrial City, I had the impression of when midnight. It was a city of smoky smoke and numerous chimneys like forests. But when it did come here, it was discovered that it was completely different from what he had imagined. There is no thick black smoke in the sky, nor the roar of the factory as he imagined. As far as he could see, there were warehouses covered with silver white iron and some silver white transport trucks. A sci-fi scene. Ying Ziyue looked at the Western Industrial City in front of her, and couldn't help sighing. It seems that the technological development on the Western Industrial Zone is no less than that on the eastern side. At this moment, the person in charge of the Western Industrial City greeted him immediately. "Welcome Team Leader Ying to come to our place for inspection. I'm the person in charge here, Huangshi." I saw Huangshi warmly entertained Ying Ziyue and others, and he took Ying Ziyue and others to the central area of the Western Industrial City. It seems that Huangshi also understands that Ying Ziyue does not like the cumbersome bureaucracy. As long as he can see the traces of the development of human civilization, he can be ecstatic. Leader Ying, this is the central area of the Western Industrial City. Here you can see the entire face of the Western Industrial City. At this time, the Western Industrial City is in good order, changing from the dirty and troubled scenery a few years ago. When the Western Industrial City was just established a few years ago, almost half of the engineering volume of the Western industry was undertaken. Therefore, most of the wooden bodies of the industrial city were built with efficiency as the core, and it was inevitable that it was a bit ugly in appearance. But now it is different. The Western Industrial City is now as organized as an ordinary city. This Western Industrial City is much better than when I visited it a few years ago. Huangshi on the side heard these words and quickly said, "Leader Ying, don't underestimate it. This Western Industrial City is now well organized. It does not mean that its efficiency is reduced. Not only that, because of technology, with the continuous development of the city, the efficiency of our industrial city has improved a lot. Since you said that the efficiency of the industrial city has increased a lot, where does it show up? Let's just say, Huangshi brought a bill. This is the amount of steel we have produced to the east in recent years. The amount of alloy produced accounts for 50% of the entire west. Just now, the amount accounted for 80% of the entire west. This is a very terrifying proportion. We must know that the Western Industrial City is just a city, and what he compares to the entire west. Let me take a look at your steel NUOZO processing plant. I want to see how such a huge quantity works. No problem at all. Huangshi was very confident and took Ying Ziyue to the steel processing area of our Western Industrial City. When I first came to this steel processing area, Ying Ziyue felt that the temperature was a bit high, but fortunately, the temperature resistance and transparency on his body could automatically adjust the temperature point as soon as I entered the factory. I was gradually greeted by a large amount of red molten iron. Chapter 734. I saw that the pool in front of my eyes was full of red molten iron, and there were not a few workers around to look after such a huge amount of molten iron. Leader Ying, you may not understand. Why do we produce so much every year? It is precisely because we are now adopting a model of manual and mechanical cooperation. What you see now is the number 1 iron pool. The water in this pool is about 500 tons. You have to know how much it will be if it is converted into steel. We have hundreds of iron pools like this, and what I'm showing you now is only one of our steel processing plants. Hearing such a huge amount, even when Midnight couldn't help being stunned. Listening to him, the amount of steel produced in the Western industrial city every year is indeed terrifying. But why don't I feel that it is too much? Why do I have so much steel, but I don't feel a bit in the East? The secretary on the side couldn't help but vomit. You will build a huge project every once in a while. Of course, the consumption of these steels is huge. You just used it before it was shipped to the East, before entering the warehouse. Ying Ziyue scratched her head. It turned out to be like this afterwards. She smiled and said, Leader Ying, I will take you to the center of our control room just now and let you see the steel making system we independently developed. Independent research and development? Upon hearing the self-developed system, Ying Ziyue became interested again and went to the core control room of the steel processing plant. There are several young people here who are controlling the system inside, controlling the processing according to the temperature and flow of the molten iron on the panel. Ying Ziyue glanced at the system panel. This system well reflects the detailed data of each step of the steel from raw materials to processing to completion point. In this way, it is indeed possible to better control the speed of steel making. I remember that, when he came a few years ago, the Western people use the oldest steel making method to make steel here. But after so many years, the West has also undergone earth-shaking changes. After leaving the steel factory, Shi took Ying Ziyue to another place, which was a warehouse. It was a little strange to win the Midnight. When he walked in, he realized that the superalloy armor that was lined up in it was exactly the superalloy armor made in the past. The superalloy armor that was manufactured at the beginning was mainly used for exploration. With the continuous updating of exploration equipment, even the outer armor was born, and this superalloy armor was also stranded. I know this. It's superalloy armor, right? Why is it here? Hasn't this superalloy armor been abolished long ago? She smiled and then walked out. A few lads from the warehouse. These lads are all working in the factory. They are very interested in superalloy armor. It just so happens that there are also a few in the steel plant. The superalloy used for transportation at the time. After the armor is abandoned, I will train them. Ying Ziyue glanced at these young men who are all Orientals. It is impossible for Westerners to be interested in Oriental technology. Some of them even hate Oriental technology. Team Leader Ying, he is a real person, not the god on TV. I actually saw my idol. Leader Ying, can I ask you for an autograph? We are all reserved. Don't forget our business. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 735. The first older man said, we are all workers working in factories, but we also have a scientific research heart. We just don't know where we are located, so by chance, touch this superalloy armor. I also ask the leader Ying to take a look at the results of our hard work, and then make an evaluation, so that we can know where we are. Ying Ziyue nodded. In fact, under the all-round education coverage of the Great Eastern countries, mainly from the East, there are no people who don't know anything about scientific research. It can be said that in today's Great Eastern countries, everyone is a scientist, but those who can enter the National Bureau of Research are nothing more than geniuses among scientists. I saw the older man headed up and said, let me introduce first. He is not called superalloy armor. We named it Fully Automatic Puppet by Zanki, based on its performance and function. Fully Automatic Puppet. It sounds like it has nothing to do with superalloy armor. Yes, this Fully Automatic Puppet has nothing to do with superalloy armor. Now with the birth of exoskeleton armor, superalloy armor is outdated. We have to admit that exoskeleton armor is far superior to superalloy armor in terms of speed and flexibility, and it can also do many things that superalloy armor can do. But, think about it from another angle. Some superalloy armor can do things, but exoskeleton armor may not be able to do it. Superalloy armor has been used in the construction of some huge projects. The purpose of his original design was to be able to move things that are difficult for ordinary humans to move to the maximum point. In other words, starting from his advantages, its function is enough to surpass the exoskeleton armor and become a unique existence. These workers are thinking in the right direction. In fact, some people have thought about it a long time ago, but they did not make actual actions after all. An obsolete thing is only an obsolete product, no matter how it is rebuilt. Leadering, we are just workers, but we are in a Western industrial city, and the last thing we lack is steel materials. Because of limited time, we only created 3 fully automatic puppets, 0 fine flowers, if you rely on speed alone. He is really not comparable to exoskeleton armor. His speed is even twice the speed of human running. But did you know that ants can lift objects more than 400 times their own weight and can drag objects more than 1,700 times their own weight? So we developed this fully automatic puppet based on the ant's bionic muscle principle, and this fully automatic puppet weighs up to 1 ton up and down. That is to say, it can lift 400 tons of items and drag 1,700 tons of items. Hearing this data, even Ying Ziyue couldn't help but start thinking about it. This is a very terrifying number. If it is really like what he said, a fully automatic puppet, he can drag 1,700 tons of steel by himself. In this case, only a fully automatic puppet can save a lot of material, manpower, etc. handling resources. At this moment, Ying Ziyue finally began to pay attention to them. Perhaps there are geniuses in the factory. Death. Chapter 736. After listening to this man's introduction, Ying Ziyue frowned slightly. At the beginning, he thought it was just a little joke of the workers after all. There are enthusiastic scientific research enthusiasts all over the country, all thanks to the popularization of scientific research and education in the Great Eastern countries. But when he revealed the operating data of the fully automated puppets, his thoughts changed drastically. We must know that the large-scale transportation of steel and building materials in the large-scale eastern countries of the September 10th still requires the cooperation of manipulators and steel bridges, especially manpower. Once a large amount of steel and building materials are involved, manpower layout is required. After all, machinery is not omnipotent. But once this fully automatic puppet is available, they will save a lot of robotic hands and steel bridges. Although this fully automatic puppet, based on superalloy armor, is less flexible than exoskeleton armor, but if you compare it with manipulators and steel bridges, its flexibility is much higher than those of manipulators. Congratulations, what you said successfully moved. Now show me the specific use of this fully automatic puppet. If it is really like what you said, I will write a letter of introduction. You can take this. A letter of introduction goes to any scientific research bureau of the country for the appointment of an assistant position. You must know that nowadays, any scientific research bureau in the country no longer recruits externally. If you want to enter, it is nothing more than making actual contributions. Only after getting a letter of introduction can you enter. Ying Ziyue's letter of introduction. No one's letter of introduction can have more weight than his letter of introduction. As a result, several young workers began to inspect all aspects of the fully automated puppet. Suangshi on the side saw it and quickly said, "It just happened that a batch of steel just came out today, and the weight of this batch of steel is 1,000 tons. If you can deliver this 1,000 tons of steel to the port, it can be considered as an application of your strength." The man who gradually took the lead said confidently, "These were all on the transportation platform just now. The 1,700 tons I said were included in the friction with the ground just now. If it is on the transportation platform, our transportation efficiency is at least it can reach 2,000 tons. Don't talk about it. Transport the 1,000 tons first, and we will save some more." Huangshi said this in order to give these young people a chance. He had seen these young people's efforts to create these fully automatic puppets, and no one understood the efforts of these young people better than him. The young man with a tiny diameter smiled and took out a remote control similar to a toy remote control car, and saw that he pressed the button on the remote control point, a fully automatic puppet with huge steam emanating from all over its body, and then it wakes up like a sleeping beast. Ying Ziyue raised her brows. At first, he thought that the operating system of this fully automatic puppet should be very complicated. He never expected that only a remote control was needed to control this fully automatic puppet point under the control of that young man. This fully automatic puppet gradually began to walk towards the port point. At this time, 1,000 tons of steel in the port have accumulated into a huge steel block. These steel blocks are accumulated on the transportation platform, and under the transportation platform are thousands of many pulleys. Chapter 737. These many pulleys reduce the friction between the steel and the ground during the transportation of these steels, so as not to cause unnecessary waste due to friction. At this time, these transport workers are standing on both sides, because they have been notified that today they do not have to transport the 1,000 tons of steel first, because today there is a special worker to transport the steel. I heard that a special worker will be sent from above, and he can transport the 1,000 tons of steel by himself. What a joke. Does he really think he is a god of war alive? No one can transport the 1,000 tons of steel by himself. Probably some huge construction machinery. I also think it might be a new type of transportation engineering 02 equipment, which is coming for trial operation today. At this moment, the fully automatic puppet appeared on the stage, and he was caught up and down by a lasso. Ying Ziyue was behind the automatic puppet, and then under the control of the young man, the fully automatic puppet hung the hook. After being promoted to the transportation platform point, when the surrounding transportation workers saw this fully automatic puppet, they couldn't help but look at each other. They all guessed that what they were about to arrive next was some kind of huge construction transportation machinery, but they never expected to come is actually a robot. Compared with the huge amount of steel blocks behind him, this robot is extremely small. Isn't it a good huge construction machine? Why did a small robot come? Look at the posture of this little robot. Are you preparing to pull 1,000 tons of steel by yourself? Do you believe it? Anyway, I don't believe that its size is less than the size of a block of steel. How can it pull so much steel? The young man manipulating the automatic puppet heard the worker's comments, but he didn't care, because she knew that only by showing true strength could the rumors disappear. Ying Ziyue simply sits on the transportation platform behind this fully automatic puppet and looks at the fully automatic puppet. How does it pull the 1,000 tons of steel? At this moment, the fully automatic puppet sprayed huge steam up and down all over his body, and saw his legs bend slightly, and then began to walk forward. Suddenly, the transportation platform under Ying Ziyue started to move, which shocked Ying Ziyue. She never thought that this fully automatic puppet could actually pull the 1,000 tons of steel. Then the fully automatic puppet pulled the 1,000 tons of steel to the designated destination. Ying Ziyue couldn't help but sigh. I never imagined that there is such a genius in this small factory. This fully automatic puppet, I admit it. You can take my letter of introduction to the National Engineering Department and tell them this fully automatic puppet. As for whether you will study it by yourself or hand it over to the National Engineering Department for a search, it's all up to you. Those young people who received the letter of introduction were ecstatic, but Ying Ziyue was lost in thought. He didn't know how many geniuses were still in the country, and they were as dusted as they were. Thus, a bold idea was born. Ying Ziyue said to the secretary, I have an idea. I want to publish a message across the country. I will hold an event, and the name of this event is Oriental Science and Technology Cup. Chapter 738. When the secretary on the site heard these words, he couldn't help asking, then Mr. Ying, what kind of thing is this thing called the Oriental Technology Cup? Ying Ziyue touched her chin, and then said, this is just an idea. As I said before, many scientists have been born under the popularization of Eastern science and technology education, but many of them have been buried, because they did not have it. in the dust. There are some geniuses who can clearly contribute to the country, but they are deceived because they have no way, no material, no place to show themselves. So the purpose of holding this Oriental Technology Cup next is to unearth those geniuses who have not yet been discovered. In fact, Ying Ziyue has now discovered that, so far, most of the talents in the Great Eastern countries are elders who have been researching and developing. For the East, since the Ice Age point, most of their thoughts started from the Ice Age, but now the Ice Age has almost minimal harm to humans, so they need fresh blood to join in and open up new ideas for them. In other words, they need a brand new genius to activate the Oriental scientific research pool, which has gradually become silent. The East cannot stop, it has to stop, it is perish. So they have to make continuous progress. Ying Ziyue said to the secretary, for this Oriental Science and Technology Cup, I'm going to set up an Oriental Science and Technology Tour near Yanjing. Everyone can enter this Oriental Science and Technology Tower. As long as you have the scientific research results you can enter the Oriental Science and Technology Tower to show yourself. Then the scientific research departments of these countries can enter the Oriental Science and Technology Tower, see these novel scientific research results, and select their own suitable department talents. In this way, the scientific research personnel of the national department feel the influence of the novel technology, and they may break through their restrictions, and those who are desperate and dusted may also enter the national department to show their talents. The construction of the Oriental Science and Technology Tower is the intersection of the new generation of geniuses and the older generation of scientific researchers. Whether the level of science and technology in the East can undergo tremendous changes as a result depends entirely on their good fortune. The secretary nodded and then said, I will hand over this construction project to the Ministry of Engineering now. Shall we return next? Don't worry, I also want to see how far we have developed in the East. Maybe we will find those geniuses who have been dusted in the next journey. The construction of the Oriental Science and Technology Tower was sent to the Ministry of National Engineering, and the Ministry of Engineering immediately began construction. They thought it was just an ordinary Oriental Science and Technology Tower, but they didn't know that this Oriental Science and Technology Tower was about to change the civilization mileage of the entire East. Ying Ziyue continued to visit other contents of the Western Industrial City. Facts have proved that today's Western Industrial City has been completely technological, novel. Even the manufacturing process of steel and alloy has gradually become technological, and the application of manpower is becoming less and less, and the extra manpower is used to study how to make steel and alloy more effectively. Soon, Ying Ziyue visited the entire Western Industrial City, and the entire Western Industrial City is now in a virtuous circle. Ying Ziyue felt that she didn't need to stay any longer, so she continued her journey. Chapter 739. Ying Ziyue took a UFO aircraft and left the Western Industrial City and headed to the Western Agricultural District. While sitting on the aircraft, Ying Ziyue thought that the agricultural areas in the West were probably the same as the industrial areas in the West. But when it came to the Western agricultural area, it discovered that it was completely different from the industrial area. I saw a huge protective shield covering the Western agricultural area, where Ying Ziyue's UFO aircraft was intercepted by the air from the Western agricultural area. And those Westerners who came to Ying Ziyue's UFO aircraft in a flying vehicle, thinking that Westerners, they speak fluent Eastern words. Excuse me, sir, in front of the agricultural area of the East, no aircraft is allowed to fly from above. Please take a detour. I'm here to visit the agricultural area. Don't know if I can go in. Ying Ziyue took out his identity information, and those Western people glanced at his ID card, and then used the scanner in their hands to verify it. When their scanner showed his ID card information, all the Western people in their hands were shocked. You are the famous team leader Ying. My god, did I meet a real person today? Leader Ying, I'm your idol. Please sign me a name. Ying Ziyue never expected that he would have a certain popularity among the Western community. After signing the name, Ying Ziyue guided these Western people to the apron. After stopping the UFO aircraft, they were taken to the central control room in the agricultural area. There are no cities here, only endless plains. On these plains, the fertile land is planted with plants that feed the people of the world. The person in charge of the Western agricultural region, Lindong, hurriedly walked out and said, "Leader Ying, I'm really sorry. I've been studying how to increase the yield of crops for a while, but I didn't come out to greet you the first time. It doesn't matter. I came here this time only because of a global travel. I passed by here to take a look. What happened to our agricultural area in the east, which was set up in the west?" Lindong pushed his glasses and said, "If you talk about this, I'm really excited. Let me introduce to you our latest research and development of the dome of the sky. That's right, the top of the sky above us, which covers the entire area, is a latest research and development result. Point, don't you think it has only a thin layer? Its ability can be great. It is almost the same as the Dragon King and the myth. Point, inside the dome of the sky is installed one after another fiber pipes. These pipes can transport a variety of nutrient solutions. Then, after the nutrient solution reaches the top of the sky dome, a series of small holes will be opened on the surface of the sky dome, and these small holes will sprinkle the nutrient solution on the field like rain. Point, not only that, the top of the sky dome is not only as simple as it seems on the surface, but there are still various complicated pipelines in the scene, distributed underground. Point, and the purpose of these pipes is to make these plants feel the absorption of nutrient solution in all directions. Not only that, the top of the sky can also be adjusted by underground pipelines according to the different growth temperatures of plants on each piece of land. Chapter 740. Although there is only the upper layer on the surface of the top of the sky dome, in fact, it is also laid underground. Point, the real top of the sky dome is a special structure formed by the combination of the rising shield and the underground pipe below. Ying Ziyue looked at the top of the sky dome above her head and then asked, "Then the top of the sky dome can be adjusted according to the environmental temperature and soil differences in the growth of various plants. Because this agricultural area can be seen endlessly, it is all a plain, and all the food products are planted in one area." Point, faced with this question, Lindong's answer is yes, as mentioned before. In addition to the protective cover on the top of the sky dome, there is also the laying of underground pipelines below. Point, and these underground pipes can be said to be the most complicated and ingenious place in the design of the dome of the sky. These underground pipes go deep into these soils and are as intricate as the roots of plants. On the top of the sky dome, you can feel all aspects of plants. Then, based on these data, further changes were made to the soil temperature and nutrients around the plants, which made the plain today look the same on the surface. Point, in fact, in the ground, the soil on each side is different. It can be said that the dome of the sky system has been supplied according to the different needs of each plant. If you are comfortable with these food products, why should you worry that they will not increase production? For a while, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but admire that the dome of the sky system was really good. Point, at this moment, Lindong said, "This is still not our true strength. Come here, team leader Ying, and take a look at our experimental field. It will definitely surprise you." The location of the experimental field is right in the center of the dome of the sky, and a large number of guards have been set up next to the experimental field to guard it. Point, even Lindong himself has to swipe his ID card to enter, which shows the importance of this experimental field to the agricultural area. In this experimental field are the genetically modified plants we are developing. If this idea is put in the past, it is definitely a very sci-fi existence, or even an unrealistic fantasy, but with the blessing of Eastern technology, they are no longer unrealistic fantasy, but really real thing. Zero fine flowers. Lindong took Ying Ziyue to a plant. "Leader Ying, guess what plant is planted here?" "Just looking at the leaves, I can still guess a little bit. The one below must be a radish." Ying Ziyue smiled. He had already seen the half of the red fruit that was exposed. What else could it be, if it wasn't a radish? I saw. Lindong smiled and said, "It's a pity that you only guessed half of Ying's team leader. This is indeed a carrot, but to be precise, it should be a combination of a carrot and a potato. Let's just say, Lindong picked out the radish from the ground and saw a radish underneath it, combined with many other radishes, just like a bunch of grapes. We combined the genes of radish and potato. After a year of genetic engineering, we finally got this brand new plant. The genetic sequence of these fruits is exactly the same as that of radishes, but the growth method is the same as that of potatoes. They have the same huge yield as potatoes, and they have extremely high growth rates. This is the genetic engineering we are studying. Dying. Chapter 741. I know the output of potatoes, but it is recognized as strong among all grains, so the genes of potatoes are also applied to other food crops to increase production. Later, Lindong cut off the genetically modified radish and handed it to Ying Ziyue. Although these are food crops produced through genetic engineering, their genes are completely the same as the original crop genes, and they will not taste at all. Cause side effects to the September 13th human body. Ying Ziyue took a bite of the radish, and suddenly he felt the juice of the radish explode in his mouth, and a delicate fragrance flowed into his body along his throat point. And genetically modified radishes, both in terms of yield and taste, the radishes before they burst point. Seeing Ying Ziyue's expression, Lindong smiled and said, "It's rare for team leader Ying to come and inspect, but you can't let you just look at this thing. You come here with me, and there are more genetic engineering and food crops." Ying Ziyue followed Lindong to another experimental field. The food crop directly on this experimental field was tomatoes. But this tomato is different. The size of this tomato is comparable to a big watermelon, if I'm not mistaken. This tomato is combined with watermelon genes to produce a crop. I can tell at a glance. How can a tomato grow so big? It looks like a watermelon, and it looks like a genetically modified product. Lindong shook his head and said, "Leader Ying, you guessed wrong again. In fact, this is a kind of fruit. The radish I showed you before is a combination of 2 genes, and the melon in front of you is all 3. Combination of plants." I saw Lindong plucked one of the melons, and then took a fruit knife to cut it open, recommending this thing that looks like a tomato, but after opening it, the inside is yellow. Ying Ziyue took a sip. I think he finally understood what the third plant gene is. It turned out to be cantaloupe. In other words, the melon that looks like a tomato is actually a combination of cantaloupe, watermelon and tomato. Yes, we have been exploring these years how to combine more gold. Because the more genes are combined, their advantages can be combined. Just like building blocks, one day they will be developed a perfect plant zero. Ying Ziyue looked at the cantaloupe that looked like a tomato. Which step has your genetic engineering done now? At present we are trying to fuse 4 genes at the same time. So far it is in the experimental stage. Ying Ziyue couldn't help but sigh. If genetic engineering in agricultural areas continues to develop, it is believed that within a few years, the food crops they are familiar with will be eliminated by new genetically engineered plants. At that time, it will be replaced by a stubborn radish that has the same yield as potatoes. It looks like a tomato, but it is actually a cantaloupe. It is very magical to think about it. Lindong smiled and said, "The knowledge of genetic engineering is very advanced. So far, we humans have only spied its fur. Only one day, we will definitely master genetic engineering." Looking at Lindong's firm gaze, Ying Ziyue said, "I can give you a hand letter. You can use my hand letter to call some resources for genetic engineering experiments. But there is a genetic engineering experiment that is not allowed to be promoted when it has not reached full maturity. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 742. Genetic engineering is a very mysterious and dangerous project, because what he is exploring is the most secret thing of all living things in the world. That is, genes. Once human genes are destroyed, the entire human race may perish due to this. Genetic engineering is a Pandora's box. When you open the belt, besides power, there is potential danger, and you may be swallowed by it if you are not careful. Therefore, Ying Ziyue repeatedly warned Lindong that zero to large scale promotion is not allowed until genetic engineering is fully mature. Lindong is also well aware of the dangers of genetic engineering, so far, he has also applied it to increase food production. After visiting the Western agricultural area, Ying Ziyue boarded a UFO aircraft again, ready to go to their third stop, which is a Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base. sitting on a UFO aircraft. Ying Ziyue is still thinking about genetic engineering, although for them, human genetic engineering has just started, but as he said, this new project is very dangerous. After thinking about it, Ying Ziyue decided to send some senior researchers to work with Lin Yang on genetic engineering to avoid any discrepancies. Looking at the endless sea outside the window, Ying Ziyue stayed inside. That the development of human civilization has been so rapid. Some things that he can't understand have gradually appeared. The methods and objects that once appeared in science fiction, fantasy, and fantasy are now becoming reality. Ying Ziyue stretched out, and soon the UFO aircraft came to the Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base point today's Xihai City. Because of the development of giants such as the giant and aircraft carriers, their status has risen sharply, and they have now become one of the first-tier cities. Their shipbuilding technology also enjoys a certain reputation throughout the country. Ying Ziyue simply asked the National Engineering Department to set up a Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base near Xihai City to hold some giants. Arriving in the sky above the Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base, Ying Ziyue stood high in the sky and saw the giant anchored in the harbor. The former giant was still in the turbulent flow, just like Mount Tay, who made a huge contribution in the original turbulent flow of the sea point, but now it is parked in the harbor. With the rapid development of science and technology, even the giant has been eliminated. After all, the giant had just been built, and it was put into use before it could be completely rebuilt. Such semi-finished products have accelerated its lifespan consumption. Failure to progress in this era means elimination. Ying Ziyue's UFO aircraft landed on the platform of the Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base, and the staff from the Xihai ship manufacturing base immediately came out to greet him. "Welcome Team Leader Ying, come to our Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base for inspection." Ying Ziyue looked at the giant in the distance and asked, "Is the giant currently in service?" Haha, so far, the giant has been retired. Upon hearing these words, Ying Ziyue thought as expected, the giant has already retired. Is it a commemoration of the reason why it stopped in this harbor? But then, the staff member said, "But the ship in front of you is not the giant, but a new giant that is based on the giant." Chapter 743. Team Leader Ying, the reason for asking this is because you are afraid that the previous giant will be eliminated, right? It was also the previous giant, just a semi-finished product. Because of the sudden attack of the turbulence under the sea, it could only be ordered in danger. A semi-finished product is destined to be imperfect, so it should be retired. The staff member of the Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base looked at the giant not far away. No, it should be said that it was the Oriental giant. The giant deep sea ship is an indelible symbol for our Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base. It was because of its existence at the beginning. Many submarine cities were saved from disaster. For this kind of hero, we should respect it, not abandon it. What's more, the Eastern Giant's deep sea ship is a semi-finished product, and it has a lot of places to be modified. So after the establishment of our Yellow Sea vessel manufacturing base, the first thing is to recover the giant deep sea ship, and then further transform and improve it, and then equip it with the highest technology equipment. Now, the new giant, the deep sea ship, was born and named the Eastern Giant. Ying Ziyue looked at the behemoth behind her and smiled slightly. The Eastern Giant deep sea ship. This is really a good name. The deep sea ship giant was slashed in the turbulence, transporting a large amount of supplies to the major submarine cities and saving the people from the deep waters. It can bear the name, since Team Leader Ying is so interested in the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. It's not as good as our first stop as the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. The surface of today's Eastern Giant deep sea ship is still extremely smooth, far from the traces of pits and pits that it used to be. It is because of the current Eastern Giant that the material used on the surface of the deep sea ship has changed from the most basic steel to alloy. The defense has doubled, and the cost has been higher. However, all the employees of the Yellow Sea ship manufacturing center had to refurbish the giant deep sea ship at any cost, and all of them passed. Then there is the internal structure of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. The internal structure of the deep sea ship imitated the internal structure of the previous giant point. The only difference is that the originally empty weapon arsenal has now been filled with various torpedo missiles. That is to say, the Eastern Giant deep sea ship now has a quantitative attack capability point. Not only that, the Eastern Giant deep sea ship is equipped with satellite radar, which can connect me to the satellite group in the sky, so as to detect the surrounding situation point. Every move of the Eastern Giant can be detected by the deep sea ship of the Eastern Giant. Not only that, the Eastern Giant is good point. The body is also equipped with hundreds of huge manipulators, which can be extended out of the ship to operate when needed point. Today's Eastern Giant deep sea ship is equipped with a total of more than 10,000 staff members, which are much more than the previous giant deep sea ship. Nod Zio. This is also a full-body Eastern Giant deep sea ship. At this time, the Eastern Giant's deep sea ship is equipped with 3,000 torpedoes and 1,000 missiles. Thousands of artillery are equipped on the ship, and there are even 2,000 fighters. Such a terrifying firepower is the true strength of the Eastern Giant's deep sea surveillance ship. You must know that the Eastern Giant deep sea ship has just begun to be built. The original purpose is to bomb the island. Chapter 744. Leader Ying. You may not feel the true power of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship just by watching here. It happened that we had a military exercise recently. It is better to put this exercise until today, so that you can see the Eastern Giant deep sea, the true power of ships. Ying Ziyue nodded, just as he was also deeply interested in this brand new Eastern Giant deep sea ship. Afterwards, the staff took them aboard the Eastern Giant. After they boarded the Eastern Giant, they felt that the ship was so huge. On this deep sea ship, various buildings rose from the ground, just like a small city. The staff found a car on the side, and then signaled Ying Ziyue to come up. In the car, they all came to the central control room of the Oriental Giant. This central control room is said to be various control rooms, but there are various departments in it, and there are a total of 3,000 crew members controlling the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. Ying Ziyue couldn't help sighing that so many crew members are under the control of one captain. I really don't know how this captain is able to command 3,000 crew members to do the same thing at the same time. The crew on the Eastern Giant deep sea ship are all crew members with more than 10 years of sailing experience, and our commander is an old captain with 40 years of sailing experience. The central control room of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship is mainly divided into several departments, including the navigation department, the power department, the flight department, the weapon department, and the command department. The navigation department is mainly responsible for the Eastern Giant, the radar around the deep sea ships. They are the eyes of the Eastern Giant. They are always observing every move around. The power department is responsible for the power system of the Eastern Giant. They are the heart of the Eastern Giant. They always ensure that the Eastern Giant can sail on the sea. The flight department is responsible for the planes of the Eastern Giant. These planes perform the functions of reconnaissance, bombing, and support. There is no need to introduce the weapons department. They are responsible for a series of weapons such as the torpedo turret on the Eastern Giant. It can be said that they hold the key to destroying the world. The last is the command department. The command department is also the department we are going to. The captain's room is in it. They are responsible for mobilizing the various departments of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship, and are also the brains of the Eastern Giant. When they came to the command department, they saw a large number of staff members staring at the screen in front of them, constantly recording and adjusting data. The captain of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship sat on the captain's seat and looked at the screens, always pointing out the errors they had overlooked on the screens. Captain Lee, this is team leader Ying. After seeing Ying Ziyue, the captain of the Eastern Giant immediately stood up and respectfully saluted him. This is the commander of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship named Li Shan. Welcome team leader Ying to come and inspect our work. It's okay, I just came to see how capable this Eastern Giant deep sea ship is. The staff on the side hurriedly said, the above approvals have been approved. The military exercises that were originally conducted 3 days later have been moved to today, so that Captain Ying can take a look at the true power of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. Chapter 745. Receive. After Captain Lee received the order, he immediately began to command the other crew to prepare for the deep sea ship. It can be said that the size of the Eastern Giant is the largest ship in the world so far, so its launch time is much longer than other ships afterwards. All the crew members of the command department began to operate at a fast speed. The panel in front of their eyes orders were distributed to several departments below, and the 3,000 crew members of the deep sea ship, the maneuver of the Eastern Giant, immediately began preparations for the startup work. Buzzing. I only heard a huge roar from the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. This huge roar can be heard throughout the Yellow Sea Ship manufacturing base. For a time, the staff of the entire Yellow Sea Ship manufacturing base couldn't help but look at the behemoth in the port. Is this sound that the Eastern Giant is about to start? No, the most recent exercise was also 3 days later. Why did it suddenly start today? You don't know yet. Today Team Leader Ying came to our Yellow Sea Ship manufacturing base, so the above issued a special order to let Ben's military exercises to be held 3 days later. To be held today. No wonder it just happened to let Team Leader Ying take a look at the crystallization of our entire Yellow Sea vessel manufacturing base. You must know that this Eastern Giant deep sea ship is a Yellow Sea Ship manufacturing base, and all the staff's painstaking efforts, had it not been for their efforts to defend the giant deep sea ship. Maybe the giant deep sea ship nowadays has no idea what kind of scrap iron has become. In the harbor, the behemoth of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship began to slowly start. Finally it started to slowly leaving the port, and then it moved faster and faster, until it turned into a huge giant on the sea, slashing the thorns with its cape, and breaking through the huge waves. Originally, the icebergs on the sea looked extremely small in front of the Eastern Giant. With a bang, those icebergs were originally good players for galloping the sea, but they also appeared vulnerable in front of the Eastern Giant. Ying Ziyue was sitting in the control room of the Eastern Giant's deep sea ship. Through the screen, she saw such a wild side of the Eastern Giant. On the sea, it was simply a beast. Zero fine flowers. Leader Ying. The next real good show is yet to come. Not long after, a huge iceberg appeared on the radar of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. The size of this iceberg is no less than the iceberg continent that once attacked the mainland. Its size is so huge that even the Oriental Giant looks a little petite in front of him. The deep sea torpedo is ready to launch at any time. The bomber is ready to take off at any time to bomb the target. The missile is ready to launch and attack the target. The weapons department listened to my orders, and after 3 seconds, all firepower broke out. After giving an order, only 3 seconds later, a lot of sparks were emitted from the entire body of the Eastern Giant. The last missiles poured onto the iceberg continent like a torrential rain. I saw a huge red mushroom cloud rising from the iceberg continent, and finally the smoke dissipated. I saw that the iceberg continent in front of me had already been torn apart and turned into many small icebergs. This is the true firepower of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. Death. Chapter 746. The powerful and terrifying firepower of the Eastern Giant directly blasted the iceberg continent to pieces, and it was also in Ying Ziyue's mind, unable to calm down for a long time. When the giant deep sea ship first appeared, it was like a savior, saving the transport ship in the storm. Today, the giant deep sea ship has begun its journey again, but at this time he has been updated and changed into a new generation of September 17 inches new Oriental Giant. Not only that, it not only inherited the huge size and immobile personality of the previous generation of the giant's deep sea ship, it also has more powerful firepower. Above the sea, it is an invincible beast. The staff of the Yellow Sea Ship manufacturing base looked at Win Midnight, and then smiled and said, Leader Ying, this is only a deep sea ship. What you will see next is that our Yellow Sea Ship manufacturing base has been a milestone in recent years. Lanteng Deep Sea Submarine. The Lanteng Deep Sea Submarine is the Yellow Sea vessel manufacturing base. The deep sea submarines manufactured in recent years are mainly used to explore some deep sea areas that are hard to reach by humans so far. The Lanteng Deep Sea Submarine uses resin alloy as its shell on the surface, which makes it able to withstand the strong pressure in the deep sea area. He has an extremely large oxygen storage room, which occupies 2/3 of the entire submarine's body. But what such a large oxygen storage room brings is a decrease in performance point. Fortunately, the main task of the Lanteng deep sea submarine is to explore the deep sea area, and other functions do not need to be too much. Leader Ying, I'll be the only one to show you the scenery of the deep sea next, after testing. So far, the deepest distance of the Lanteng deep sea submarine is 50,000 kilometers under the sea. Ying Ziyue followed the staff into the interior of the Lanteng deep sea submarine and saw that the interior of the Lanteng deep sea submarine was much easier to operate than the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. Compared with the deep sea ship, its function is also a lot less. It only needs to have the radar function to explore the surrounding things, the lighting function in the deep sea through the lighting to obtain the line of sight. After all, the sun cannot shine there in the deep sea area. Needless to say, the ascent and dive are mainly used to control the ascent and dive of the Lanteng deep sea submarine. Then there is the intelligence supply system. What is worth mentioning is that the Lanteng deep sea ship used water electrolysis technology for the first time. Oxygen can be extracted from the seawater. This painting greatly solves the endurance function of the Lanteng deep sea ship, and at the same time, the safety factor is also greatly increased. It is important to know that most people who dive into the deep sea, in addition to the danger of pressure from their surroundings, once their own oxygen runs out, it is also very dangerous. Everything was ready, and then the staff controlled the Lanteng deep sea submarine and began to dive into the deep sea. Ying Ziyue fell into the Lanteng deep sea submarine and saw the staff opened a dark shadow. The interior of the Lanteng deep sea submarine instantly turned into a transparent color. He could see the outside scene. When he sat inside. For a while, he seemed to be in the ocean, and Liu Lian had a small fish next to it, and she could feel it. Ying Ziyue couldn't help but smiled. This design is quite humane, and it makes me feel like I'm in an aquarium. The deep sea area is coming soon. Leader Ying, you have to be ready. Chapter 747. As the deep sea submarine continued to descend, they saw the scenery of the shallow sea and the submarine city under the deep sea. As the submarine continues to shallow, the vision around them is getting darker and darker, and the submarine turns on the lighting function, which allows them to see the surrounding situation clearly. Gradually, they have reached 100,000 miles under the sea. At this time, if they don't use the submarine's lighting function, they can't see the surrounding situation clearly. At this moment, a strange shaped fish 02 passed by Ying Ziyue. It was a brand new species he had never seen before. The staff on the side explained, with the beginning of the Ice Age, different changes have taken place in the world, but in the deep sea, we have no way to see it in detail. In order to adapt to the changes in the Ice Age, organisms always have to change their appearance. With the dashboard on the Lanteng deep sea submarine, the numbers continued to climb, and they saw that they had reached a place of 100,000 miles under the sea. Here, Ying Ziyue saw a lot of seabed plants and some marine life that he had never seen before. The deep sea is an unknown area that humans have never set foot in. It is necessary to know that the ocean area accounts for 70% of the land area, so there are many unsolved mysteries in the deep sea, and there are many things that humans can continue to use. For example, next, the place I want to take you to is the Seabed 100,000 Research Center established by our Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base, 100,000 miles under the sea research center. Hearing this phrase, Ying Ziyue was taken aback. Could it be that the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base established a research center 100,000 miles under the sea? The Lanteng deep sea submarine continued to descend, and finally they came to a place of 100,000 miles under the sea. 100,000 miles under the sea, and hearing this data at the same time, Ying Ziyue could feel how huge the pressure around him is. If it weren't for the birth of golden air alloy, I'm afraid that their submarine would have been twisted into an iron ball by the huge deep sea pressure. At this moment, a beacon lighted in the darkness not far away, and this beacon was particularly dazzling in the darkness. Leader Ying, don't be fooled. Those are marine fish in the deep sea preparing to trap their prey. We set up a research center 100,000 miles under the sea. Their lighthouses will release an unfixed frequency to distinguish marine fish and lighthouse. Sure enough, when their Lanteng deep sea submarine approached, they discovered that the light that had just turned on was really a huge marine fish point, and this unidentified marine fish saw the huge Lanteng deep sea submarine quickly put out his lights and then dived into the darkness. Then they continued to move forward and finally saw a light in the distance in the dark, flickering and dimming, as if releasing a signal. There is the research center we set up 100,000 miles under the sea. The Lanteng deep sea submarine leaned over, and as expected, under the shining of their lights, a huge glass cover appeared in front of them. In order to establish this deep sea research center, we have spent a lot of effort. We must know that not all materials can withstand the huge pressure of living on the seabed. Looking at the research center in front of her, Ying Ziyue can only use one word to describe it. That is, sheer skill. What a crazy idea, to establish a research center in a place 100,000 miles under the sea. Chapter 748. When they entered this deep sea research center, they discovered that the concept of deep sea research center construction is almost the same as that of Ocean City construction. It's just that the materials used in the two are different. Otherwise, the materials used in the construction of the Ocean City are used to build this deep sea research center. I'm afraid that the materials have not been established yet, and those materials will be crushed by this powerful seabed pressure. Maybe Leader Ying, you have also noticed that the structure of this deep sea research center is almost the same as the urban structure of the Ocean City, but in terms of materials, we use the hardest metal alloy so far. Otherwise, ordinary metals will have a strong seabed pressure. Among them, it's really hard to survive, because the strong pressure in the deep sea will constantly oppress the deep sea research center. The maintenance cost of this deep sea research center is also very high. After walking into the deep sea research center, Ying Ziyue found that there were only a few staff members. The staff on the side explained, after all, this is a deep sea, and you can't see your fingers, and the east is facing the threat of strong pressure all the time. So there are very few people applying for this deep sea research center. The harsh environment of this deep sea research center is similar to that of the Earth's space station. Humans can only curl up in a small space. If they want to go out and explore, they must wear special protective clothing. The researchers at the deep sea research center immediately stood up when they saw Ying Ziyue coming over. They never expected that they would be able to see Ying Ziyue himself in 100,000 li under the sea. Thanks for your hard work. Ying Ziyue had nothing to say. She could only encourage them. After those researchers heard his encouragement, tears filled their eyes. This time, I will mainly let team leader Ying take a look at your work. The staff on the side reminded that the researchers at the Deep Sea Research Center immediately understood this sentence. What the staff meant was to show them the scientific research results that can make Ying Ziyue's heart fascinating, proving that their Deep Sea Research Center is not a useless project. The researchers nodded and then began to introduce their work to Ying Ziyue. In fact, our work is very simple. In this deep ocean, as long as you find anything beneficial to human development, you will immediately report it and record at the same time their data. For example, we just discovered a kind of electrolytic stone on the seafloor recently. The electrolytic stone itself can emit a large amount of small currents, and then these currents can electrolyze the seawater in the stone, thereby producing a large amount of hydrogen and oxygen. The most important thing is that the output of these electrolytic cells is extremely large, and a large amount of this ore has been discovered in our exploration area. Various electrolytic stones can be used in the manufacture of submarines, which can enable the submarine itself to generate a large amount of oxygen through seawater, thereby increasing its endurance. The most important thing is that we have also discovered promise, another kind of ore. We don't understand the current working principle of this ore, but it is certain that it can absorb seawater and convert it into heat energy. In other words, if they study and understand the operating principle of this ore, they can build a power generation device based on this principle that uses seawater to produce capacity. Ying Ziyue was a little surprised. If this were the case, the energy era dominated by a thermionic might be about to change. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo fanfic novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 749. Just listening to you, I do find it useful. Let me take a closer look. If this ore is really useful, it is likely to change the current energy age. When Ying Ziyue heard what these researchers said, she couldn't help but feel a certain interest in that kind of ore. I know that the most thing on earth today is seawater. If seawater is used to generate electricity, a lot of resources will be saved. There are no more volcanoes than seawater on the earth. Ying Ziyue followed the researchers to a laboratory. I saw a dark blue ore in the center of the laboratory, which was only the size of a fist. Ying Ziyue stepped forward. Is this the ore you are talking about? Yes, don't worry, team leader Ying. I'll show you a demonstration. Then the researchers stepped forward, took the ore out of the glass cabinet, and placed it on the research platform. Immediately after, the researchers took out a test tube, poured some seawater into the test tube, and dropped a drop of seawater onto the ore. When the seawater dripped onto the ore immediately emitted a large amount of steam. Then the researcher took a thermometer to test the temperature of the ore, and saw that the temperature of the ore actually rose by 10 degrees Celsius. We discovered this ore in a submarine volcano. At first we thought it was because of the hot temperature of the submarine volcano that this ore possesses such high heat, but when we took it out of the submarine volcano, the heat she emitted was still as high as 1000 degrees Celsius. So we discovered the real use of this ore. Afterwards, the researchers put the ore in a fish tank, and saw that the dark blue ore suddenly became extremely hot, and the whole body turned into a burning crimson red. In less than a minute, the seawater in the fish tank started to boil. Ying Ziyue frowned slightly. This ore is indeed very magical. If the production capacity can be used reasonably, it will be no less than geothermal particles. But now, your technology is still a bit immature. Hearing these words, the researchers couldn't help but look at him. It seemed that it was not so easy to get Ying Ziyue's approval. However, this technology does have a huge effect on the promotion of human civilization. Regarding the Deep Sea Research Center, make a report and send it to the National Research Center. If you add my recommendation letter and referral letter, it should be able to dial down part of the research resources. Hearing these words, the researchers were ecstatic, and with research resources, they could explore more deep seas. Today's deep ocean is still an unexplored and unknown realm for mankind. How many amazing things exist and it is still unknown. Secretary, after waiting on the land, please inform me that the Atlantis Research Center has asked them to allocate a part of the research resources to study the unknown realm of the deep sea. I have a hunch that it is in this unknown realm of the deep sea may be able to discover the huge assets that promote human civilization. Afterwards, the staff drove the Lanteng deep sea submarine and returned to the surface with Ying Ziyue. Ying Ziyue glanced at the staff. This is not the way to the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base. Chapter 750. If I remember correctly, this is not the way to the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base. Are there other projects waiting for me? Today, the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base has given him enough surprises, but now it seems that the staff has no desire to return. Leader Ying, I just remembered that today is our day for icebreaking exercises. Our Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base has built thousands of new icebreakers. You haven't seen them yet? A new type of icebreaker? I think I'm not interested in other ships after seeing the Eastern Giant, a deep sea ship at all. Hearing these words, the staff member just smiled and then said, the new icebreaker and the Eastern Giant deep sea ship are two completely different ship types. If the Eastern Giant deep sea ship is a beast on the sea, that new type of icebreaker is a bird of prey on the sea. After hearing these words, Ying Ziyue became interested in the new type of icebreaker mentioned by the staff. Then the staff drove the Lanteng deep sea submarine to the destination of the military exercise point. As soon as they approached the area of military exercises, they received a radio from the fleet of new icebreakers. Warning. The Yellow Sea Icebreaker Exercise Center is ahead. Please show your identity certificate for unknown ships. This is a Lanteng deep sea submarine. I'm a staff member of the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base. We have obtained the qualification to observe military exercises. Received. Received. It has been confirmed here. Please pay attention to safety and do not affect military exercises. Receive. Then the staff drove the Lanteng deep sea submarine into the territory of the military exercise and saw a large number of black icebreakers docked on the sea point. They seemed to be following these orders, and then these black icebreakers began to move, and they moved very fast point compared with the huge Eastern Giant. These new icebreakers are indeed, as the staff said, a bird of prey on the sea. Not moving like a mountain, moving like a rabbit. Today's icebreaker, after the latest improvements, is equipped with a very powerful engine system that can accelerate to a speed of 100 kilometers within 10 minutes! 0 Fine Flowers. The current latest icebreaker can be said to be the fastest icebreaker in the past. The powerful speed brings the powerful impact force. So the front end of the latest icebreaker, in particular, uses the most powerful metal alloy so far as the bow. Those glaciers with smaller stature are simply vulnerable to the latest icebreakers. 0 What if you encounter a larger glacier? This is also very simple. Today's icebreakers are equipped with powerful firepower, although they are not as terrifying as the Eastern Giant's deep sea surveillance ship point. But the icebreakers are more numerous, and when they fire together, even if it is a huge iceberg, they will be bombed by them. The speed of these icebreakers is so fast that they can almost only be seen in the sea, passing by. I remembered that the previous staff said that the Eastern Giant was a beast on the sea, and the latest icebreaker was a bird of prey on the sea. This sentence is really good point. After seeing many ships and deep sea research centers, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but sigh. This time he came to the Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base, which really gave him a surprise. Death. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.